Thanks for joining us for another segment of Breaking Taboo. I'm your host, Lakota Phillips. National best-selling authors and BDSM experts Eden Bradley and Ann Mayburn join me to discuss BDSM myths, protocols, and misinformation. Now, about my guests. Real-life kinkster Eden Bradley is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of erotica and erotic romance. She's best known for her BDSM novels, The Dark Garden and Dangerously Bound. She loves art, shoes, who doesn't? Tattoos, her Boston Terrier pup Voodoo, who is hella cute, lip gloss, reading dirty books, oh yeah, and doing dirty things that often involve pain and a little mind fuck. See why I love this woman? And with over 40 published books, Ann Mayburn is queen of the castle to her husband and 3 sons in the mountains of West Virginia. In her past lives, she's been an import broker, a communications specialist, a U.S. Navy civilian contractor, a bartender waitress, and an actor at the Michigan Renaissance Festival. Ann spends her days trying to tune out cartoons playing in the background to get her sexy space, and has accepted that her muse has a severe case of ADD. What muse doesn't? Welcome, Ann and Eden, to Breaking Taboo.
Thank you, Lakota. I'm thrilled as always to be here with you.
I love having you back. And Ann, this is your first time on the show, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And my dog and cat are fighting in the background, so we'll just ignore that too, because evidently I can't find silence anywhere in my house. I should have rented a hotel room.
Hey, it's a little sound effect back there.
A little pet play.
Oh no, well, yeah, exactly. That's actually my kittens in the cage next to my bed. I like to keep them 24/7. Because I don't have enough to do with 3 kids.
We won't talk about who I have in a cage next to my bed. Oh, actually, since considering the topic.
I saw pictures today. Very nice.
That was a fun party last night.
I bet.
I got to flog all kinds of booty. It was a big line. It was pretty awesome. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today, is we're going to talk about people that actually are in the lifestyle and write about it. Eden and Ann are authors, but they also practice in the lifestyle, so they know what they're talking about. How long have you been in the lifestyle? Let's start with Ann.
I would say that my first time that I've ever actually did something that I would consider kinky was when I was 16 and I tied my boyfriend up and really, 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 really liked it. But my whole life I've kind of just leaned that way. If there's been something, there's a scene in a movie where the hot chick is tied up while the threatening yet seductive bad guy is saying that he's going to do all these evil things to her. I find that hot as shit. Not necessarily from the girl's point of view, but from the evil villain's point of view. Tom, huh?
Could be. Yeah. How? Well, one of those Facebook memes on how to tell if your inner dom is trying to come out or something. Yeah, that's one of the ways you could probably tell.
Yeah, that was kind of a big red light, and I had the luck of growing up near Detroit, which has a super huge kinkster scene. And I had a lot of people that were very willing to mentor me and very willing to let me ask like super stupid, dumb questions.
And I tell you what, you are one of the people when I'm like trying to explore some area that I'm not familiar with. It's like, oh, let's go see what Ann's up to because Ann knows everything.
Yeah. Kink is kind of doing new things, so I've dabbled in pretty much everything that I could find that doesn't involve poop, pee, or blood.
Yeah, amen to that. What about you, Eden? How long have you been in the lifestyle?
It horrifies me to say it, but I've actually been doing kinky stuff for 30 years. So I started when I was 23. I had, oh my God, the hottest boyfriend. And I went to the Army surplus store and they had a pair of handcuffs in the case. And I thought, well, that'll kind of spice things up. And so I went home and he came over that night and I handcuffed him to my bed and I just stood there shaking all over. Like I had no idea what a profound impact it would have on me. I was so turned on, like my legs were like, I really stand up. And I wasn't even quite sure what the heck I was going to do with him handcuffed. It was just like a prolonged tease scene. There might have been some biting, but I don't think there was really any pain involved. So I was a top for the first 2 years and I met online because I was kinky before there was internet. Unlike Emma, in the beginning, and I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, which just always had a huge kink scene, but I was very isolated because I had no way to reach out and contact other kinky people. Society of Janus is one of the oldest kink organizations in the country and possibly in the world, located in Francisco. But in those days, it was all very like old guard, gay leather daddy. It wasn't something I could approach. And so I had no idea where to get information. So it just involved, a lot of pervertibles, heavy leather belts and stuff bought at the hardware store, chains and carabiners and, literally some scarves and what else did I use? Clothespins, and you just discover stuff, hairbrushes, of course. So it was a while before I sort of got into it in a more sophisticated manner. And then I met a Dom in an online chat group, and he was the first guy that made me want to get down on my knees. And so I started exploring the other side, and I've been kind of back and forth and switching to this day.
And you're just purely a Dom, aren't you, Anne?
No,
Dom,
I'm a switch,
you
but
are? Okay.
It's like 90%, 10%.
Right.
I can get into the mindset of submissives and I can understand a submissive, but it's very, very rare where I actually hit subspace, whereas I hit dom space like almost instantly.
I was talking to a baby Dom, that's what we call the new ones, a baby Dom last night, and actually had him bottom for me to find out what it was like. And that's always a good thing for Doms to know, is to understand what it's like to be on the receiving end, because then you really know what you're dishing out a little bit better.
Absolutely. That's how I was trained.
Yeah.
That's how my trainers did it. I was not allowed to do, and I reflect this in my books a lot just because I think it's a good safety catch. I was not allowed to do anything to anyone unless I'd had it done to myself first. So I had some idea of pain. I have a freakishly high pain threshold, so I had to learn how to dial it back further. But at least I knew going in that, hey, that looks innocent, but it really, really, really hurts.
Yes. And, pain levels are very different from person to person, too. And that's something else that anybody in the lifestyle has to be cognizant of, whether they're a submissive or a dominant. There isn't one correct way of doing it. And that brings us to one of the key things we want to talk about today, the one true way. And Anne, I think you're the one that brought this topic up about a month ago.
Oh, yes, she did. Yes, Anne started
We'll blame
it's a little, shall we call it a rant? Is that it?
Yeah, oh yeah. I go off sometimes, just let it all hang out. So yeah, it was a rant.
Let's go ahead and if you'll go into that a little bit, the discussion of this concept of, I think Eden calls it the one true way.
Yes. Okay. First, I want to tell you something from my own life, which is something that I saw happen to a good friend, which has made me adamant about this one true way bullshit. She got with, this is back in, 1997, so the internet was just kind of coming out, you know what I mean? And she got together with this Dom on there, or this guy who called himself a Dom, who had her absolutely brainwashed as to what a master-submissive relationship could be. It was she had no safe word. She had no. This wasn't a risk-aware couple. This was a 45-year-old guy with a 19-year-old girl twisting her head all around. And she was really adamant that because her and this group of people on the internet had this power structure and way that slaves were supposed to do things, that it was all good. Then she decided to meet him without telling anyone because he was her true master, blah, blah, blah. And she ended up getting kidnapped and assaulted by him. So it goes beyond just the simple, stop being a dick to everyone just because you don't understand their kink, into more of a don't belittle people and their views and their ways of doing things just because you don't do it that way, and don't ever assume that you're right.
Absolutely. I think that it's such a dangerous thing, especially for people who are newer coming into this. I have a friend, a fellow writer who I've known online for a number of years, and she's going through divorce and just exploring kink other than, some spanking and stuff with her husband, now ex-husband, for the first time. And she's going to come see me. I'm going to take her to club. But meanwhile, she's joined a small local group, and gone to a couple munches, and she's gotten on FetLife, which for those of you who don't know, it's like Facebook for kinky people. And she got into a group of submissives. And she was telling me just this morning on the phone that she's, having some question as to whether or not she should remain in the group, because she knows from hanging out with me and other erotic romance and erotic author BDSM or who live BDSM that that the judginess in there is harmful to the newbies. And she said she's getting the message a lot that and I know of a lot of like wannabe doms, or what we called romper doms.
There's the same thing as baby doms, except for a romper room.
Doms, especially if they're young, who they're 20, they've been doing kink for 3 months, and they instant everyone calls them master, and they tell you, well, you're not really a submissive if you're not doing A, B, C, and it's total.
How dare you look me in the eye?
Right, and it's like you can go and have your terms, and Dom can say, look, if you're going to play with me, these are my rules. You don't look me in the eye. You don't, but just to tell just anybody you're talking to that you don't have a negotiated agreement with about play and scening and roles and toys and limits and everything. No, there's you are just people together, and you don't have to call some Dom you don't know sir just because he demands it. I'm sorry, that's total crap. A top or a dominant has to earn those titles.
Right.
And if I would call, if we're at a club, I would call either of you please, ma'am.
You bet your ass you would.
I can't wait to play with Anne sometime.
I have called you both ma'am. Well, Anne, I know I called you ma'am because you were hurting me. Lakota, this is so weird. It was all such a blur when we were at Bondage Expo Dallas, and I can't remember if you and I actually played. No, I think we just watched it.
I topped Robin.
That's right. So, but I've seen you in action. Yeah. So yes, ma'am, it is. I'm on the bottom side. Anyway, sorry, I digress. It happened a lot.
Really?
I think it's all related.
Yeah. So this is the thing. This is my thought, and I know that we all agree, which is conversation came about as you taking it onto your radio show, is there is no right way to do kink. Concerns and respect for other people. Basic guidelines should be the safe, sane, and consensual and RAC, which Anne briefly addressed, which is risk-aware consensual kink. So this means that everyone involved is taught upon understands what the associated risks might be. And I hope that people know enough to negotiate for aftercare. This is a big thing for me, because responsible behavior does not stop when the scene is over. There's aftercare, caring for wounds and bruises, sub-drop, top drop, which might be a whole other radio show, but we should maybe go into that at some point. But in facing a consensual kink, there is a difference between hurting someone and harming them, and this includes emotionally. So other than that, the only rules you have to follow is that there might be specific rules at each venue you go to. Different clubs have different rules. Some places, no total nudity. Some places, no fireplay. Some places, no intercourse, but you can use computers or other, there's all different rules.
Protocol, which is, I'm not saying that you should never address someone as sir and never not meet their eye when you initially meet them. There are some clubs that is considered the protocol at, and when you agree to go to that club, you agree to follow that protocol. But that doesn't mean that if you're in Walmart and he comes up to you, you better drop and spread your thighs.
Exactly.
Or if you're on Facebook, some chat program, or FetLife, and you meet some guy online that he demands you dress in as Sarah. No.
Let me digress here for a second, it's not really a digress, but we talked about there's really no one true way. But there actually is bad way. There are certain things that you should always be on the lookout for to protect yourself. There's certain things, safety things.
There are
that
predators out there, and
oh my God, yes.
Yes.
Yes, so let's talk about that for a minute while we're on this topic of wrongs and rights. What are some of the definite wrongs to watch out for if you're coming to kink? Because we know with the popularity of the 50 Shades movie, which I know, Eden, you've seen, and I just saw, and we're going to go into a little bit of discussion towards the end of the show about this, because I do have a little bit of a rant, but just a little bit. But you have a large contingency of novices going,
yes,
this is interesting. Let me go online onto Match.com and find myself a dom. What are some of the very wrong things that you can do while investigating the lifestyle? Let's start with Anne.
I would say that one of the number one things, I'm just going to do this from a submissive's point of view right now, because dom's a whole another can of worms. from a submissive point of view, don't settle. Just because the first guy that you talk to professes that he's the ultimate dom of the universe and you are the best thing ever since sliced bread, that doesn't necessarily mean that he knows what he's talking about or that he's going to be good in a relationship for you. Take your time. Talk with other doms. Talk with the community. Find out about people before you do your first scene. It's very tempting to get lost in all the chemical euphoria that comes with good BDSM, but you also have to learn how to balance it with your life, and a good dom will help you do that.
Absolutely. Eden, what are your thoughts?
Well, just to sort of bounce off something Anne said, she said all of the, you can get lost in all the lovely brain chemicals that come with good BDSM. Sometimes it even comes with bad BDSM.
Yeah.
With someone who has no idea about safe, sane, and consensual or risk-aware consensual kink, they may do things to you that you have not discussed that feel great and make you fly and take you down into subspace. And then the next day, you're having subdrop and they're not doing any follow-up with you. So I think one of the big things is make sure that you go through very thorough negotiations. If you don't know how, get online and look. There are sample contracts and questionnaires. The questionnaires actually, I think, are really great for new people because it brings up all of this stuff that you may have thought about. If you're brand new, you may not know that anal fisting could be on the table.
Those questionnaires are long and will make your jaw drop.
Yes, they are.
That's right. I think probably the biggest warning is do not go into any actual activity without making sure that you have done some reading and research and discussion with people who are in kink if you have that option. Educate yourself. These are dangerous things that we do. Physically dangerous,
I have one thing I want to
emotionally dangerous, and you have to have some idea of what you're doing. You could really get hurt. Something simple as in 50 Shades, he puts that rope around her. Now, it looks like someone did come in and advise them about how to do a half hitch. But, if you think, oh, well, I'll just get some rope, I'll get some nylon rope and I'll, tie up my girlfriend, boyfriend, have them tie me up and hook me up to the bedpost, one wrong move and you've got nerve damage in your hand for life. So really know what's going on. Don't just say, oh, well, he says he's the dominant, he will lead the way. No, you have to take personal responsibility for yourself. Going in with some education behind you.
Absolutely. Anne, you had something you wanted to add to that.
It's kind of piggybacking on what Eden said. You have to have a knowledge of basic human anatomy when you go into BDSM because you will be pulling on joints and you will be pulling on muscles a lot different than people are used to for extended periods of time with happy chemicals flowing through them. So that means that their hands could be just about ready to fall off as you have them tied above their head with silk scarves. They're not going to tell you shit because they're about to orgasm. Until you take those little ties off and all of a sudden you realize, oh, we have to go to the ER and explain to them what exactly happened.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. There's another safety protocol if I can add in here too. It's a common sense one for any person, male or female, that is meeting a strange person, and that's have a call backup. Somebody who knows where you are. I'm sorry, but no matter how long you've known that person online and you trust them and you like them so much, really, tell somebody, tell a close friend or tell a family member where you are and have a call-in time that you're going to check in with.
And a GPS tracker on your phone if you're really sketched out about meeting this person.
And if you're a dom, that goes for you too. So often we seem to think that the submissives are the only ones in danger. I'm sorry, but doms can get themselves into some very ugly situations where all of a sudden with somebody that they thought they were having consensual sex with or topping, it doesn't even have to be sex, and that person all of a sudden accusing you of assault.
Or from a female dom's perspective, when you are with a guy who is 6 feet tall and outweighs you by 250 pounds, and all of a sudden he decides that you aren't going to give him exactly what he wants, and he starts to get aggressive with you. Yes. That is also something to keep in mind, because with a female dominant who's smaller and not as muscular, she's going to have a hard time fighting off a guy that is physically bigger than her.
And you've got a lot of people that have very extreme sexual tastes that are drawn to BDSM. So the shark pool is a little bit bigger than it would be in just your regular dating pool.
Yes, because it sort of gives you license to do things, discuss things that, vanilla, quote unquote, vanilla folks would never even consider. And also, honestly, like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm 53 years old. And even when I'm just going on a vanilla date, I have a friend whose husband is a cop, which is handy because, in California anyway, I think to put out an APB on a missing adult, you have to be gone for 48 or 72 hours.
Oh, wow.
But he's a detective in California. He can put an APB on me in 3 seconds if I don't check in with her when I'm supposed to. Mm-hmm. And, that seriously, if I'm just going to meet somebody, they get their online profile, whether it's FetLife or OkCupid or wherever I happen to meet them, their name, telephone number, all the information I have about them. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's a dom I'm meeting. They damn well better know enough about the kink life and kink community to send me the license plate of their car to give to my safe call, and I let them know I have safe calls and I have to check in at regular intervals, and that there will be coded conversation and they will not know what it is. And honestly, that's just the way you go. You know what? It's a weird world. Yes. We're even weirder than like you said. It's a much larger pool of sharks.
Yeah. Anne, you were going to say something.
Well, it's actually also a larger pool of victims.
Yes.
You have a never-ending supply of people that are trying to identify or do identify as being submissive, who in some cases are people pleasers. I would say that's one of the dominant characteristics that I've noticed in submissives, coming into these situations looking for someone to sweep them off their feet. Mm-hmm. And predators are usually very, very good at that. Good at blending in, good at being Mr. Awesome, good at being everyone's friend, but they can't maintain that persona.
Absolutely, and that's a stereotype is usually that we think of the aggressor, the person that is out to stalk as being the predator. Oh, well, it can be the reverse too. You can have somebody that is that leech personality where they want to attach to you, and they can be pretty damn freaky, and you can't shake them loose. And that can lead to a whole host of problems. You've got to not hold so close to the stereotypes of who is the bad guy and who is the potential good guy or good woman. It is a wide open field, and you have to protect yourself.
Absolutely. And you have to understand when you're coming in as a submissive, and there's a difference between a sensation bottom and a submissive. I identify bottom end is more a sensation bottom. I am submissive only with a very small handful of people. I'm not a submissive person, but if you have that tendency and you're seeking out kink for the first time and you have some guy who is ordering you around, you may think that that's the way it happens, and you may naturally respond to that by going very into the submissive role and rolling over and letting them say and do whatever they want with you. It's not always okay. Right. You have to step back and say, is this okay with me? Is this really meeting my needs? Have we discussed this? Is this guy respectful of me? Is he as caring of me as he is brutal with me? Mm-hmm. Or whatever the case, whether he's flogging you or just giving you orders over the phone. I had a friend who's very, very, very submissive. And she met this guy who was a wannabe dominant. I actually met him, quite brilliant, which I think made him even more dangerous. Ted Bundy also had a genius IQ, which is why he played with so much. And he ordered her to meet him naked in her driveway when he pulled up in his car in a condo neighborhood. And she had children. Now, the children weren't there, but all it would take is one neighbor to look out the window and say, oh my God, this woman is walking naked out of her house, and call Child Protective Services, loses custody of her kids. So you have to think about that. This guy was not okay, but for her, he would slap her in the face. He injured her cheekbone. Facial bones are very delicate. For her, it fulfilled something in her, but he was harming her on so many levels. And that's where really having information and some support. There's so many other groups out there of submissive women, who will support you and have your your back and help you learn and mentor you. I'm actually I'm involved with a lot of people, especially through the writing community, both writers and readers. I mentor a lot of people as they enter the lifestyle. I put them under my protection. And it's important to try and seek that out before you seek out that dominance you fly.
I absolutely agree with that. And there is, across the entire nation, there are a lot of people that have been in the kink community for a long time. So you can find people to trust. You just have to find them. You have to look for them, either as a top or as a bottom. I mean, these are important things to do. Let's go into one of the things that I wanted to ask you guys on BDSM stories, because you do have, especially with women, going and exploring how they feel about kink first through books. They do it at a distance. It's safe to read stories, see if it really appeals to you. Erotic authors being the catalyst of that. Now, you have a lot of authors, BDSM stories that are written by imaginative authors who base their stories on hearsay. They're not actually in the lifestyle. I want to ask you guys, what are your pet peeves about those kind of stories? And I know you must have read some of them. And you first.
Oh, man. Okay. Other than being physically unsafe, like if you are encouraging people to do things like squirt hot pepper sauce up their penis if they've never actually put anything into their penis before,
yeah,
I have problems with that. You need to step back for a second on that and consider what you're saying. But other than that, it's a matter of taste. There are some people that like their BDSM to be as cheesy as a goddamn Hallmark movie of the month. But that's their taste. Doesn't mean I agree with the book, doesn't mean I like the book, doesn't mean I think that other people should take any kind of lesson from that book, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that scene or that kink is intrinsically bad. Now, that said, there are books that are more psychologically damaging, I think, than others as far as steering people in a direction of BDSM and what it should be. Like, I won't go into it because I'm not downing anyone's writing, but I will say that there are some books that I think should not be used as pamphlets on how to have a healthy dating life.
I agree.
Oh, boy. Okay. I agree with every single thing Anne said. I don't know. I mean, the three of us, we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
So, which is.
Do I need to play
great,
the devil's advocate?
No, you know what? No. You know what? I won't play. I will not play devil's advocate when it comes to this stuff because people's safety involved, you know.
Right.
There may be someone else who wants to argue the other side of the coin, and it is not going to be me. I think one thing to consider when you're reading is to consider your source. There are a lot of us that are out and talk in interviews all the time that we are involved in kink, and I do think it qualifies us. Now, I know one author, and it's okay for me to say, it's Molly Weatherfield, who wrote Carrie's Story, which I consider to be, it's very literary rather than erotic romance necessarily, for those who haven't read it. She had me fooled. I could have sworn, and I've met her. I did my first live reading with her, and she said, you know what, I've never, other than, very little experimentation at home with her husband, she's never actually gone out and done any of these things, and her stuff is hardcore training house, and I was really surprised. But I think for most people, there's going to be so much missing if you haven't actually experienced it, and I think you can get online and do some research and check out the author. Are they the real thing or are they not? Even then, there are going to be things that we write about. You should not try stuff. And said, don't put anything in your urethra. Don't until you really know what the heck you do. Baby steps. I do know a few people who dive in head first. They're just bam, they go right at it. There are very few people who are actually prepared to do that. I do think that kinky fiction is a great way to dip your toes in, let it run through your mind, Like you said, think about it a little bit. What really interests you? What does it? But know that once you start trying it in real life, that you will discover some things are better left as a fantasy. And that could change over time. Maybe. Listen, I didn't like electrical play until just a couple of years ago. I didn't get rope until 2 years ago. Like, I was always more of a chains girl. I got a thing for chains. And then finally, one of my play partners in Dallas, at a rope bondage expo, he played me with rope, and I was like, oh, I get rope now. Things can change, but Yeah, just try a little at a time and understand if you try something and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean you're not kinky. Don't let anybody tell you that. You'll hear this from the wannabes and the romper doms all in particular, and fellow submissives, sad to say, all the time that, well, if you go in and you don't like flogging, you're not submissive or you're not a bottom or you're not a masochist. Not true. There'll be something else you like,
Absolutely.
So I think don't believe everything you read. And certainly don't try stuff like that you find in my vampire series. They're vampires, people. No anal without lube until you've done it enough that you can rock it like a porn star. Just saying.
You make your own anal lube. I'm a little scared, so.
Yeah.
A lot of books that have a warning at the front, that say, really, a little common sense, especially when you're dealing with BDSM. But let's say with the authors that don't put it, that are just sitting there, they go like, that's fiction, it's all fiction. Do you think there's a certain obligation that authors have to do a little research? For example, let's take 50 Shades of Grey. We know that certain things in that book were complete fantasy with no basis in reality and no great amount of research that was done. Do authors, knowing that some of their readers are going to take what they say literally, have an obligation to take their writing seriously and the impact that it could have on people?
I wish I could say that, but I feel a responsibility to educate people, but I don't think I can put that on anyone else. I feel like I can't impose that on anyone else. I think it's the reader's responsibility to be a grown-up and be smart about how they handle their life.
Anne?
I think that, just to back step just one little bit, I think that authors that haven't necessarily experienced BDSM can still write good BDSM if they research it. Just like authors that have never been Formula One race car drivers can write really good Formula One race car stories if they research it.
Exactly.
That the knowledge is there, the sources are there, there's endless diaries that you can read, there is a plethora of knowledge. And one thing that authors excel at is being able to imagine things. So there are authors out there that haven't necessarily done what they've written, but they've still written good things. Then again, you have people that just kind of randomly assign themselves titles and degrees and crap like that. Those are the people that you have to watch out for. Those are the people that are be like, my way is the only way, and that is the way.
Exactly.
Almost cult-like.
There was a situation like that kicked off this whole discussion. If anyone, no matter their quote-unquote apparent credentials, tells you their way is the only way to practice BDSM, run. They're misinformed. They're dangerous.
That's a danger sign. That's right there. You want to know a danger sign for people coming new to the lifestyle? There you go.
Let's bring this around while we have time left to the 50 Shades movie. Now, Anne, have you seen it yet or read the books?
No, that would require having a life and not a book on deadline right now.
First question I have for you guys, do you feel like your book sales have been impacted by the popularity of this 50 Shades phenomenon? Anne?
Absolutely, because I've talked about it with my fans at conventions. I always try and talk and sit down with my readers and find out what they're reading when I'm talking to them, and almost all of my readers have read 50 Shades of Grey. Some loved it, some hated it. There's everyone that falls in between that spectrum, but I would definitely say that it was the gateway drug for a lot of readers, and God bless that.
That's a great way of putting it. Eden, what about you?
Oh, it's had a huge impact on my career. When 50 Shades, it was for those who don't know, E.L. James first self-published those stories, and then Vintage Press, which is an arm of the publisher Random House in the UK, bought the rights to the books and republished them and got them really out in the mainstream. So when that happened, I was the only contemporary BDSM author Random House had. And even though I was no longer writing for them, they reissued my 2006 or 2007 novel, The Dark Garden. My hero's name is Christian. My Christian came first.
And it was an amazing book.
Thank you. But I got huge distribution. I got into Target and Walmart stores that I've never been in before. I got enormous distribution. Got my name out there and rebooted my career to a large degree. And I have so many new readers that I've met at conferences and talked to online, who didn't discover erotica or who didn't discover kinky erotic romance or who didn't even read until 50 Shades. I can't even tell you, it's definitely in the hundreds and possibly in the thousands of people I've talked to, comments I've read like that.
So I had no idea about this genre before that book. They had no idea that we even existed.
Yeah.
That's the one good thing that I have attributed to this whole thing is I've always been an advocate of women exploring their sexuality and having a dialogue, most important of all. I think that this has taken it to that next level that it needed to go. Now, that said, after going to see the movie, because I knew we were going to talk about it on the show, so I dragged myself to the theater and I sat through the film. And at first I was like, I say about 2/3 of the film, I was like, oh, this is not anything. But then the ending. And it seems to me that it perpetuates this stereotype of the deviant, abusive perv who beats the poor, innocent girl. And what impression does that give to the public? And why are they still flocking to the movie if it portrays BDSM as such a horrible thing? I do not get that, and I'm hoping that you guys can enlighten me, because obviously it sparked an interest. But the ending of the movie, and I understand the book ended the same way, left it with the Christian Grey being the monster. It turned the sadist, the dom, into the monster and left it there, and that was the final impression. It doesn't make sense to me. Let's start with Eden, since she saw the movie. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts about the movie, but as far as that particular issue, I think you were asking what's the draw for people. I think the taboo and the forbidden are always going to be a draw. And 50 Shades has opened up a dialogue about female sexuality. And I think it was portrayed as this young woman covering sexuality and glorying in it. And the actress did, I think, a great job. She was very sexy, sensual, yet innocent at the same time. And so despite that negative message that so fucking pisses me off that, being kinky is an illness that needs to be cured, yes. I think it's still going to be a draw. It's sort of a allegory, like it's a Beauty and the Beast thing.
Well, Anne, what are your thoughts on this?
I just want to ask you ladies real quick, what was the audience like when you went?
Very mixed. Men and women, a lot of couples when I went.
Well, my audience was, at the end, everybody was, what the fuck? It wasn't a full theater, but still, I wasn't the only one that stood up and went, what the fuck with the ending? Everybody in there was pretty much the same way.
That ending is awesome. It made you react. And as an author, I can only hope in books where I continue the story with the next book that the end of book 1 makes them hungry for book 2 to know what the fuck happens. And, like how she handled it or not, at the end of book 1, she had her readers hooked to find out what was going to happen in book 2.
Oh, but see, I wasn't hooked. I wanted nothing more to do with any of it. I was thoroughly disgusted.
And there were people that she lost. There's people that read book 2 just because they thought book 1 was the worst thing they'd ever read, so they had to see if number 2 was even worse than that.
Really?
It sold millions of books.
That's what I can't figure out.
About them. That's a wide variety of tastes and interests. There has to be some secret sauce about her books that appeals to everyone.
Well, let's talk about the stereotype of the monster who beats on, poor innocent girls. Let me tell you, there's a lot of women who like to beat on the poor innocent boys too. Right, Anne?
Hey, I have my boy here, so I may be switching in bottom mode, but I'm with you.
Most part, I like to have the flogger in my hand, but I'm not a monster. I think anybody that knows me, I'm not a monster, but there's still that stereotype that if you take pleasure in hitting somebody, no matter how much they might ask for it or enjoy it, there's something terribly, terribly wrong with you. And I think that this movie left that monster impression, and I think that is very, very damaging. Anne, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a sadist, and if you saw me, I am like rocking the mom look hardcore with 3 little boys. My hair is always back in a ponytail. I'm never wearing makeup. I look about as threatening as a teddy bear. However, in a scene with a masochist who truly loves pain, I can be absolutely evil because I just really enjoy inflicting it. I'm not a bad person. You would trust me to babysit your kids if you knew me. I'm very compassionate, very kind, very giving, but I happen to like to give pain to people who need it.
And Eden, I know you're the same way. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with Anne, and Anne, I've played with you. I've seen that look in your eye when you're coming at me, and it's
when I hurt people.
Scary. I like it. Yeah, as a top, I'm a really wicked sadist, and I have that for me. The DS component is not as big a thing. I like to hurt people, and maybe because I'm a heavier pain bottom, I really am a heavy sadist. I don't know if there's a correlation between the two, but yeah, give me my vampire gloves or my wand and a knife with the contact pad. I am one happy toppy camper.
I had a really vivid mental image of that in like some superhero costume.
A friend of mine just gave me a little Wonder Woman get up, so it can happen.
Oh, that would be awesome.
But like honestly, so many of the people that I know in the life, including you two, I just know you both also as very intelligent, caring, and honestly normal people. There are my friend Robin, who I know you've played with her, Lakota.
Oh, God, I love her.
Oh, my God. And she's like a heavy pain bottom.
Yes.
And getting heavier and heavier all the time. And she is a Nebraska farm wife with freckles on her nose and 3 kids, and you would never in a million years. But that's something that I think is an important message. We are not monsters. We are not sick. Look, even the psychology DSMs just a few years ago, stopped coding fetishism and kinky behaviors as a psychological disorder. And just to put things in perspective, it was the same year that they decided that women with PMS were not also suffering from a psychological disorder. So they're a little behind the time. But we're not necessarily monsters. Yes, sure, kinky people can be. So are a lot of people who aren't kinky. The two, there's not any real correlation necessarily between having kinky desires and being abnormal or monstrous or sick. And that's the one thing that I hate so much, like I think I expressed earlier rather vehemently, about the books and the movie, the 50 Shades books and movie, is that it's looked at as something he needs to be cured of.
Yes. And, that's something that my friend Gary mentioned, too, is that he finds very offensive that there is this perception that anybody that's involved in the lifestyle, from any aspect of it, is somehow broken. That there's something wrong with them, that they have either...
of the wounded dove in BDSM.
Yes, and that is unfair because there are a lot of very healthy, very happy people that are involved in that. And that stereotype has to break. People in the public have to stop believing that anybody that is kinky is sick in some way or broken.
If you ever go to a munch, you are going to look around the room, or whatever restaurant or place you decide to go to this munch at, and you will not be able to find your group because they're going to look just like everybody else there.
Absolutely.
That's true. But I do want to say, especially because the book I'm working on now is called Dangerously Broken, that sometimes, look, we all have broken pieces inside of us. The characters I'm writing about have both lost several loved ones. Their families have been broken by those losses, and they've known each other forever, so they know each other's stories, and they come together, and their relationship is healing. It's not necessarily the kink, it's love that helps them to come to terms with the broken parts. But we all have things in our life that have damaged us or broken us. There's no correlation to the kink, because you can look at someone in kink and say, oh, well, I mean, look at me. Like, I've lost my brother, my mom, my best friend, my foster brother, friends. Like, I've had a lot of loss in my life. That's not why I'm kinky. Most of that happened after I became kinky. There's no direct correlation. I'm just, other than being kinky, I'm a normal person who's been through all of the things that people just go through in life.
Been through life.
Yeah.
Before we run out of time, is there any last thoughts that you have, Anne, about BDSM, erotic romance, or sex that you want to share with the listeners?
Yes, I have one more, and that would be that be aware that when you go into a BDSM relationship that it's going to be a lot more emotional than you're used to. There's going to have to be a lot of trust involved. And if there isn't trust, then you're pretty much going to be out of luck.
Eden, what are your last thoughts on either BDSM, erotic romance, or sex?
Yes, and yes.
More of it.
Okay, more seriously, though, because I think we've encapsulated so much in this conversation. Is it okay if I give out some resources for people looking for information really quickly?
Absolutely.
Okay, good, reliable educational reading. The New Bottoming book and the New Topping book by Dossie E. Austin and Janet W. Hardy. Also, Screw the Roses, Send Me the Thorns by Philip Miller and Molly Devon. There are more, but those are two great ones to start with. You can find them on Amazon.
Now, Eden, where can listeners find out about you and your books?
I am all over the place. I get around. They can find me on EdenBradley.com or my group blog, smutketeers.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Pinterest way too much. Yeah, just about anywhere. Google me.
And what about you?
You can find me on my website, www.annmayburn.com. I'm also on Facebook, not so much on Twitter because I talk way too much, so I can't ever get like the 150 characters in. Sometimes on and I'm a Pinterest addict. I Pinterest all of my books, and it's an interesting result to see what my muse comes up with.
Before I let you guys go, Anne, what do you have that's coming out?
Alexander's Cherished Submissive, the third book in my Submissive Wish series, which is an epic Russian Dom mafia saga.
Woohoo!
It's crazy, and it's, oh my God, I can't wait for you guys to read it. I'm so excited.
Aiden, what do you have coming out?
February 24th, I have Ink and Iron Obsession, a kinky reunion story. In October, I have Dangerously Broken, book 2 in my Dangerous Romance series. And I'm working on a really hideously twisted kink story that may turn into a series. I don't know. I scared my critique partner. That's all I know. So let's hope I have time to write it sometime in the next couple of months.
I'm looking forward to reading all of those. Thank you, Eden and Anne, for joining me. Tune in next week for a show with comedian and host of The Damage Report, Johnny Dam. And we're out of here.